Okay. I don't see anybody else in here.
Do you think anyone will be joining us?
I don't see anybody.
Because
Oh, it
now we
does
know
say-
how to turn on
Oh, yes, yeah.
that.
Okay, yeah, there is, well, one person.
And I will
on the,
find this here
on the Zoom.
somewhere.
That's a real advancement.
It's quite a scene. Where are we?
I don't know, changes a lot.
So,
So hang on here, we'll get set up. Okay, guys, good evening. So the minutes are in front of you.
Did you send a letter to Rebecca?
yes. I didn't send her a card, though.
Thank you, letter.
Yes, exactly.
Once again, while we're opening, I want to compliment the minutes, how detailed they are. Comments, questions, concerns,
Adjustments to the minutes.
adjustments to the minutes,
Agenda, rather.
adjustments to the minutes.
Yes, I want to add at the very end of the meeting, a quick discussion about the email that came to you and me from the town manager. We can take it up then.
Is that adjustment to the minutes?
No, I'm sorry.
Agenda.
To
To the agenda?
Yes.
We should move and second the minutes.
We should. All those in favor? Oh, I need a motion.
I move that we accept the minutes as presented.
So noted. Need a second.
Yes.
Got a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Done. The readoption of the town plan, adjustments.
Actually, the adjustments come before the minutes.
They do normally,
Done.
yeah. As long as we get them done.
Yep.
Now, what's your thought about the readoption of the town plan? Is this just telling us it's done for 2017?
That's about it, unless
Yeah.
somebody has anything else to add. I think it went in. I haven't heard anything official back, but they acted on it, so I assume it's done.
Oh, it's done, yeah.
Has anybody else heard differently?
Not heard differently.
No, and we were here the other night. Yeah, okay. Now we're talking about updates and unified bylaws. And our guest, Brian Kovalik, yep, is here from the Regional Planning Commission. And he's gonna help us go through what needs to be updated or corrected in order to start looking at finishing the town plan, so that it can be forwarded to the select board. I had some questions that I did want to bring up at first to get it out of the way, Brian. And that is, I noticed there were a lot of changes made, just simply the word shall and should. And I'd like to hear you thinking about that. Why should we put shall in instead of should? And there must be some important reason.
There is.
Yeah.
The town plan fundamentally is a document that enables bylaws amongst its other functions. When you have a land use regulation written into a town plan, that only applies in applicable 248, 248A, or 250 cases.
Yeah.
Does not apply in bylaws. unless the town subsequently does have bylaws drafted, those become automatically what's put into bylaws, because there has to be enablement in the town plan. So when you have a very restrictive land use regulation, that probably will mostly apply to things that are not Act 250 cases in the future, like say minimum lot frontage in a district you've created in the town plan, that has to be included in the bylaws, and there's no flexibility to deviate from that based on feedback from other people, based on what the public might want. So having language in, especially in your land use chapter, that says we should consider a minimum lot frontage requirement for this district, allows you to then have the flexibility of creating that in your bylaws, which is not so stringently exact, or just exactly what you said in your town plan.
We were weaned by the regional commission always to use shall. Is there a change in the law that has prompted this?
Are you referring to Kevin?
Yes.
He would have recommended using should.
Boy, I just remember making so many should to shall, I mean, shall to should changes and back and forth. Does anybody else remember this?
I thought that's what we were asked to do.
Yep.
Huh,
If we wanted it to be enforceable as opposed to just suggestive.
Yeah, I think the
We were told to
ruling,
use,
the ruling had something to do with our emphasis on shall rather than should too. The ruling in the
should
Sunbeam
was
case,
considered two.
yeah. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
But of course, that is looking in the context of a town plan as opposed to,
Yeah,
Bylaws.
exactly,
Bylaws,
so,
right.
so that's the shift. The paradigm shift from town plan to bylaws.
And keeping all those as should and having stringent enumerated,
yeah,
quantified land use regulations in that part, those would only apply in the 250 cases. And
Right.
likely not in 248 or 248A cases either. So,
okay. So changes need to be made.
you may.
Okay,
If the town does not have a unified bylaw, would we put a shall in?
I still wouldn't recommend it. Documents like town plans are, they're forward-looking, they're hypothetical, they're a
Yeah.
statement of prospective future for the town as well as what it currently is. But bylaws are really the document that you would have to be very exacting and have regulations that say specifically what.
Okay, I noticed when I went back and I read what you corrected, that one of them was, in the rural district, we had, for purposes of the tower, stated that there shall not be anything above the tree line, and that was pretty good. So if we don't have a unified bylaw, we think should still be there to be definitive.
Right, the issue with cell towers, which go through the 248A process, is that the PUC has their own sort of standards for that. And a standard in your town plan that says it can't be higher than the tree line would effectively be a prohibition on cell towers in your town plan, which would not be enforced by the PUC during those proceedings. Because cell towers do have to be higher than the tree line around them.
Carrying on the same general thought, that we also read that you would not work with us on the unified bylaw until the 2025 town plan was complete and submitted. And then, if I'm not mistaken, that's what you said.
I didn't say that myself, I don't know.
If I may, Peter Gregory, yeah, Kevin did say that, that was kind of our plan of attack, working with you to get this plan to the select board and let them do
Yep,
their magic. And then I think very shortly thereafter, we're gonna start, working on the bylaw, even though we didn't get the municipal planning grant.
Okay,
We're gonna
so what you're thinking is that if in fact that's the way it happens, is that the 2025 plan becomes effective and it says should, not shall, for cell phone towers. And then we wait 6 months, a year or something, whatever it is, to get the unified bylaws. I don't know how comfortable we think about that, notwithstanding your comment about how effective it would be.
Right. So if you're talking about the current case in particular,
No, anybody that comes, I mean, there's so many shoulds and shalls in there. Be it a frontage, be it an offset, whatever it is, we have so many things in there because we have no bylaws that anybody could do most anything.
well, so I'm gonna say also that town plans are the thing that the PUC looks at in a 248A case or in a 248 case. And the town plan is what's looked at in an Act 250 proceeding. Bylaws do not weigh in on those. So,
It doesn't give us a comfortable thought. I mean, I can't tell you how many, Act 250 hearings I've been at where the applicant's attorney said, hey, you said should, not shall. And that leaves a lot of wide open space. So I personally would feel uncomfortable having a town plan, 2025 town plan, that is, we can buy that, even though it may or may not be effective. So it's just a general thought. I don't want to slow the process down tonight, but it's a concern, at least for me.
Yeah, I mean, I'm really confused because the advice we got, at least my recollection of it is the last go around was Two Rivers went through the thing and wanted us to change all the shoulds to shall. And so they gotta have shall in there because, and that was, unless I'm misremembering this, Peter, I don't know. The thinking was that all we have, because we don't have, zoning or land use regulations, or laws, that all we had was the town plan and the Act 250 process. So, Phil, we're trying to signaling, when Act 250 hearings were held, that the town plan wasn't advisory or anything, it was meant to be prescriptive. And so,
Right.
that's what we did, and so we always thought we had to do if we wanted Act 250 to be, if we wanted to enforce anything in the town plan through the Act 250 process, understanding that it wasn't a bylaw and that all we had was Act 250. So, I just don't know what to make of where we are now.
The only solution is if we work together on both and they both were approved at the same time, that we wouldn't use the shoulds in the town plan before, as we're finishing the bylaws and then pass them sort of on top of each other. I mean, that's a possibility. I don't know if you have any other thoughts.
Brian, if I can agree a little bit. I think the plan's got a lot of standards in it because it's a plan and not a bylaw. You don't have a bylaw to fall back on. I would agree with Brian, obviously, and Kevin in watering down all those standards from shall to should, because then you will be more prescriptive in a unified bylaw, and that's the proper place for the standards to be expressed. About building height and, those kinds of things. Assuming you get the zoning or unified bylaw in place, that's going to capture all development, as well as development that triggers Act 250. And as you know, development can't go forward if it has Act 250 jurisdiction, unless it has a local permit and Act 250. So.
Yeah, if there's an assumption that there's gonna be a bylaw in place, sure. I mean, but all we had, or our understanding all these years, is all we had was the town plan and at least projects that had to be Act 250 permitted, using that criterion of Act 250. We had to be very explicit in the town plan, and we've lost cases when we weren't explicit.
Because of
that.
And so has Two Rivers, and I think that the places where we use shall, and I would recommend you evaluate the should shall issue specifically is, locational decisions. Is that use acceptable within that land use area?
Right.
That's different than saying shall not be higher than 3 stories.
Yeah, I'm not sure, but you know, but most of the ones in the, were about really types of development in the various districts, in the various, you know, land use areas, and so that's where, most of where, you know, where we tuned it and used the word very, you know, very deliberately used the word shall. But the rest of the plan, you know, which is just meant to be visionary, it'd be sure, you know, but the thing where we're, and the problem that I personally have is that if they, you know, we're talking about unified, but until it's on paper and passed and everything, you know, all we still have is a town plan. I wouldn't wanna do the town plan now, assuming that we're gonna get something that we might not get. You know, I mean, that was what, want some history here, the last time we were charged with creating a unified bylaw, and we did. And it was just never advanced when it, you know, when it got to the select board. So, and we were doing the town plan at the same time, and so we weren't that careful, because, oh, well, we've got the, you know, the bylaw, but we've been chasing a little bit about, you know, with what happened last time, so we've lost cases in between, because we didn't, you know, because we were sort of lax the last time, and we didn't want that to happen again. And so, you know, like some of the projects that have come in, we tried to have this version prevent that. And so, you know, we might have gone overboard in terms of using shalls maybe a little too often, and we could, but in terms of, changing some of these things about like retail businesses in rural areas and change that to should? I don't think so.
But yeah, we don't have that in our plan.
Yeah, well, we also require, that in areas other than village areas or downtown areas or growth areas, you don't have principal retail permitted in your town plan. So that wasn't changed.
We have been waiting for more than 40 years to get a bylaw in the town of Heartland. Either, you know, but sometimes it's by vote. We lost it twice by vote of the residents. We lost it once because it wasn't pursued by the select board. And I would, recognizing this, I would much rather work on them both together or do the bylaw before we made the town plan change, or however you can juggle that combination.
Yeah, well, I think the town manager's given us a direct order to get this plan done and to public hearing and onto the select board before we start working on the bylaw. We're gonna honor that. You know, take a look at each of the shoulds and shalls and discuss it, but I think it's really important what Brian said is, if you get too prescriptive in the town plan, which is highly unusual as far as standards, you don't see that anywhere in the region, you're gonna hem yourself in on the bylaw. And you may not wanna be that prescriptive in the bylaw, because you're gonna catch all.
Certainly, there should be nothing in the town plan that would undermine or contradict the bylaw, yeah.
Well, yeah, you can do that, but I mean, you don't wanna be locked into a standard that sounds wonderful in an Act 250 case, but is onerous for the residents of town. You know, I've been around for decades as well, Jay, you know, and I think the select board is of a different mindset as far as doing its own regulation rather than relying on Act 250. You know, and some of the versions that we've all worked on, we've been involved in helping you through the years, have been behemoths, you know, and onerous and too much. And I think that's one of the reasons the select board didn't want to move the last one, you know. So, you know, we're committed to helping come up with a bylaw proposal that you like, that the select board likes, that is explainable, that is not overly burdensome, but can cover development that right now is absolutely not covered.
Brian, was there a version that you sent that was either in, you know, highlighted of the changes you made of the shalls and the shoulds?
Yeah.
Because my, all right, it must
Well, the
be
iPad won't show it.
my computer doesn't show it.
Oh, okay.
So that's part of the problem, is that I, you know, it was just, you know, when Dave mentioned shoulds and shalls, I said, well, I have to read through this entire document to find every single one, so I need a version of,
I'll make sure you get
yeah,
it.
all right.
Yeah, I think the version we sent.
And maybe if I just download it on my computer as opposed to my tablet, it's probably there, so.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay, that's, so you don't have to send me anything.
There's a lot of interesting stuff in there.
So you've
No,
got it
really,
on, so
I mean,
so this
It's
is like the
very clear
highlights.
that you spent a lot of brain sweat on this thing.
Yeah.
So, and I respect that and appreciate it. But the shalls and the shoulds, now you understand why I wrote you the note.
No,
Knowing
I
it couldn't be an email discussion, we'd have to talk about it.
And I'm calmed down a lot
Yeah.
now because knowing that you didn't change the ones that were active.
Okay,
And I will say too that Kevin plans to come to the next meeting and talk specifically about the future land use, or not the future, the whole land use element. So we will not talk about that part tonight.
Right. okay. Well, then, turn the meeting over to you.
I'm just gonna share what's on my computer and in here so that I think there's one other person online can see it.
Yeah, I've got one other person.
It's not legible to me.
Zoom.
That's better.
Who's there, Dan?
I have Sarah, no last name, Helen husband, and Brian's on.
Yeah.
Is on,
Let's do this. Let's go.
Yeah, sorry, bud, I'll lean back in a second.
Okay. So you're gonna see that there's whole new paragraphs added in places, in some places there's small corrections, factual things. First one here, only in Heartland right now without bylaws, just Act 250 cases over 1 acre will be included within this. As part of getting regional compliance, and a lot of the work in here is about getting regional compliance, you need to have a statement about how public participation was encouraged at all parts of the planning process. I've added this here. I know that you did a survey. Sorry, this one. At some point, you can update this to include having a public hearing on the town plan. Did you do any other meetings? Any sort of just outside of your regular meetings, just like having people come and chat about what they want?
think so.
No, I think we used the survey.
Just a
Yeah,
survey.
we did for
survey.
the survey.
We met with the designer of the survey,
Well, we presented this.
And we had a public meeting.
Yeah,
with the
yeah,
survey.
but everything was public.
Yeah. Are you talking about people coming in just to discuss it regardless of what how the agenda was entitled or?
Yeah, sometimes with things like town plan updates, you might hold a public forum. It's not the hearing, it's just another sort of like opportunity for residents to come and talk about what they would like to see in the town plan in a sort of unstructured way. Kind of like having like a large sort of focus group with an audience of residents
Beyond our regular meeting?
beyond your regular meetings.
Okay.
The two others I can think of were under the auspices of the select board. When we had that Sunnymead meeting and when we had the tower meeting, those, when we were joined with that, but it was really at the behest of the select.
But those weren't for the town plan.
Well, I don't know, that's kind
Yeah, a
of
lot
a
of
gray area to me.
Yeah.
Okay, if someone can tell me what days those were, I can add that in here later.
I could go back and look at them.
Yeah.
I got all,
We'll have to.
I got everything, yeah.
In March.
One was 2 years ago.
We'll just have to go back and.
Yeah, we can find
Yeah, it'll
it,
be in
we'll
the-
find it.
Yeah, we'll find it.
Yeah, and forward it to me, I'll put it in. Okay. Alright, so that's in that part. We'll skip the first chapter of the land use chapter, so I'll go down to chapter 2. So, chapter 1. Okay. So in this chapter, the first thing, I added some more language to the historical goal. So it includes historic structures, sites, and districts, as well as archaeological sites and archaeological sensitive areas. That's an insert for regional compliance, and you'd have some policy or goal around that. I think you meant wool, not sheep.
Oh, well, products. Dairy products, beef, veal,
Sheep being the animal.
but
Occasional small things like that.
yeah, but we were, okay. They were selling mutton.
I like mutton.
So we favored beef and veal over mutton.
This is something I noticed, and it's a good thing to do going forward. Charts, when you have decimals or don't have decimals, it's best to right align them numbers. That way someone can easily scan through it and realize what's the bigger number, what's the smaller number. So I did on all the charts in here, do that for you.
So it was great, I noticed that right off.
Yeah, it's easy to read. This one, a source, is this from the listers, the number of acres and parcels? So with specific statistics like this, you want a citation. Does this come from the listers, does anyone have?
Yes. Yes, it is. Stacy Bradley.
Then down here, I cut this out because it's one sentence, which is a very long quote, but it's not worked into this section in any way, and it's mostly just repeats what you've already said.
Has everybody here read this document?
What, between yesterday and today? No, no.
I've been halfway through it, yeah.
Yeah, I read it through today, but you have a cold audience, unfortunately, our mistake, not yours. So when you ask a question like that, I can barely see the board, so I'm not, I'm not gonna, I might not be able to give you the answer right off, and I guess other people.
Yeah.
Either.
Yeah. It's cool. I guess I read it, this is what I want to say. I read it long enough to understand that you were coming in to explain this to us. The other is that I noted that you had done a significant amount of work in here, and I just couldn't spend the time.
No, I
Now
understand.
that we're ready, we can, this is good, if you can just give us the highlights, tell us what you'd like us to correct, which I guess is the red.
Yeah, if it's
Yeah.
red, it's
Right,
edited.
and so, our record's pretty good about working at home and getting stuff done. So whatever we need to do, we'll do, and, expedite this a little bit.
Alright, and go ahead and move this quote then.
So we did get it yesterday.
Yeah, I think I got it the day before, and I wanted to read it a little bit before I sent it out.
So what, like on that red, line item, have you taken it off your document?
Right now, it shows how it would be corrected. Either
Okay, but
inserted or deleted, yeah.
But because it's struck, it doesn't mean you didn't strike it on your version, because we haven't read through it enough to say, yeah, that can go or that can stay.
So, in this situation.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've received guidance from the town manager to take the action necessary to make this approvable as it was written, and that includes going through and striking things or adding things as necessary. So in these situations, a lot of what I've added in here is to make it approvable.
Okay. Is this in conjunction with talking to the town manager?
Talking with the town manager.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. We haven't talked to the town manager about this.
So,
I'm sort of lost as we had a previous discussion of what it means and where we are in the process of what we see here. I hear something that implies that this is an intermediate point and will be taken up at some future time, but there may be things that, not arbitrarily, but we see that somebody considers to be appropriate action and not taken up again. Can you help me on that, or?
sorry, I don't understand the question.
Well, where are we? What are we doing right now with regard to finalizing
I'm
changes?
going through these edits with you
Yeah.
so that you understand the edits that are being made to it to make it approvable.
Well, let me ask you the question. Why are we bothering if the town manager's already edited it?
Well, he's not edited himself. No, I was the one to edit it.
But in the conversation with him. Okay, here's a basic problem. Title 24, the planning commission creates the document, then reviewed by the select board.
Right.
Didn't see the town, we don't know. We have no news from the town manager on what he's discussed with you that we don't know anything about. So I almost think in a sort of way, other people should speak up, that this meeting is probably premature. We've only had it not 24 hours to review it.
Yeah, I think it is premature.
I think it's premature.
But I would go back to the minutes. I think it was what, 2 meetings ago when we discussed what would be happening here? We did agree to what would be happening. Now,
But yeah,
the formula wasn't exactly laid out, but we did agree to allow Track to, they asked and we accepted their stipulation that they write it the way they wanna write it.
for
I've heard-
example,
I've heard a couple other things introduced here that I don't recall discussing.
I didn't know you were coming tonight. Until
That
Monday.
was agreed at the
No,
last
that was
meeting.
agreed upon at the last.
Yeah,
Was it?
yeah, it was.
So it's my bad
It
management.
was,
Just to
it
kind of
was.
refresh everybody's memory, I offered to help you get to this point, and the town manager, and I think Phil was here at that meeting as
Yeah.
well. And the select board and the town manager said, no, we want the planning commission to get it to an approvable state, rather than you just pass something that's not approvable, and they fix it. So I said, this is a new project, and it's the end of fiscal year, we're kind of busy, we have a couple of meetings we can come to, this one and the next one. I apologize we didn't get it out to you sooner, and I'm sorry that you don't have hard copies for which you can follow along and stuff, but, the town manager didn't say this has gotta be it. We know what it takes to get approved because of what is in the statutes and what's missing. So he went through and added stuff that needed to be in there to meet the statute, and deleted old stuff and redundancy and the should shall stuff, which we talked about. So I would respectfully suggest you just let them go through the plan other than the land use, and if you have specific questions about that, or if there's some data that we need to get that to us, we can incorporate that, and then Kevin will be here and talk about land use next.
See, I think we may have misunderstood perhaps what you said, because I thought I heard you say you discussed certain processes with the town manager.
Town manager has not been,
No,
as Peter just stated.
Yeah, I get that now, and I think that's where perhaps some of the confusion arose.
Yeah, and John has not been sitting down with me reviewing this document, that's not happened.
Well, if it's done, it's done.
If what's done is done.
If the town plan is done, if this sits here and we've edited it, worked on it, you've looked at it for us, we know what the corrections are. What's our further purpose?
No, that wasn't what we agreed to. We would take the finished product and we would review it and comment on it. That was what was agreed to.
Okay,
So we do have a future purpose, and we had to get to this point. And so now this is a compliant, acceptable document, and we'll review it, make sure it still reflects our intent when we drafted it.
And if we're not doing land use tonight, I don't see any problems just going through, just.
yeah, just highlight what we gotta get done, we'll get it done.
Yeah, I mean, it all seems pretty benign to me. Just
Yeah.
my problem was the land use section, so.
No, I won't
Yeah,
talk
all right,
about
yeah,
this.
okay.
Okay, so here we have the first shall that could be a should. This is about forest and agricultural practices reflecting the need of the town's natural resources, water and scenic resources. That's not even an implementable policy in terms of like a land use regulation. Here, there's a couple new policies I've added. The first, these are required to be in a town plan for regional compliance. You encourage to support the manufacture and marketing of value-added agricultural and forest products. That's actually one of the state's goals for planning. You also encourage and support the sale and consumption of locally grown food products. That's another that is a goal in the statute. You need to show support for it. Having a policy about required agricultural practices and forestry operations utilizing accepted silvicultural practices. These are also policies that are required to be in a town plan for
Can you tell me what
compliance.
pages, for the purposes of minutes, can you tell me what pages you're on?
Yep, right now, sorry, I just got rid of it. Page 37 and 38.
Thank you.
Now, and maybe remember that the state has asked, there are some cases, even our 2017 town plan did not reflect some of the state's initiatives. So this is implementing a lot of the state initiatives
Yeah, right,
that we
we got it.
didn't have there.
Correct.
Yeah, that we didn't know about when we were doing.
So you had a recommendation in here that just said area land trust should assist interested landowners, but didn't have any like recommendation that was implementable by the town or a town agent. So I just added something in here, just the town should work with area land trusts to assist interested landowners. It's a slight rewording of that. Down in this section, there's no edits for a bit.
Page number, please.
Small insert here, page 42, just adding Connecticut River. It wasn't
I
specified.
don't think we disagree with that.
It's the one you meant, yeah.
And by the way, if you haven't read the document, it's really well noted what he's added and what he's put in. And so.
It is.
Yeah, now I see it as, yeah.
Yeah, I
so
mean,
That's
this
what I
is,
didn't see before. So that's my fault.
No,
well, that's not a fault, it's in
Well,
there.
it's just, it's my computer's fault.
sorry, I had to get it to you guys faster. Page 43, adding scenic views and vistas, scenic roadways and waterways to your scenic goal. Do you want to have something specifically about that?
Makes sense.
This was actually just in here already crossed out. I think you meant to delete it at some point.
Okay.
Scenic policy is that it should be maintained. if your scenic view of ridgeline hilltops and hillsides should be maintained, shall, that probably should be a should.
What page?
This is on
44?
44.
44.
How would this interplay with any potential hearing on a tower? You know, that section, if the
Yeah.
saying is that, you know, if one of the criteria is town plan, and, you know, and it could be argued that we watered it down, well, but you're saying we can't, in other words, what would be the problem with shall in that particular sentence in terms of?
That it would apply to any development in the town.
Yeah, no, we do want to discourage developments that'll be on ridgelines that'll detract the scenic value.
Right, and in the case of a cell tower, it's most likely to be somewhere near the top of a ridgeline. They don't typically site them at the very top of the ridgeline. And I did add later on, in the utilities facilities chapter, standards about not having a cell tower compound at the absolute top of the ridge. So in those cases, those are typically where cell towers go. And like I said before, they have to be higher than the trees around them to be able to emit the signal. It would be blocked if it was actually the same height as trees. So there's definitely a desire to protect ridgelines and hilltops from development, but certain developments will go up there. So in a PUC proceeding, I'm talking about a cell tower, that is something that they will consider, but they have to sort of balance that desire to preserve aesthetic beauty with the importance of providing cell phone coverage.
Yeah, and
They will consider all that.
but
But that's
I don't
not
want to
structures.
get, I don't know how much.
That's not structures, is it? Didn't Queechy Lakes have to take down a bunch of buildings at one time because they put them up too high?
I'm not familiar with that case.
So I had to change some.
Long time ago.
It wasn't the height, it was the glass that was
Was it
reflected.
the glass? Yeah, you're right, it was the glass.
Well, Brian, what would be the argument of sticking with shall on number 3?
In number 3,
Yeah. No,
Just that-
what would be the harm in it?
I would read it as a prohibition against all development on ridgelines, hilltops, and hillsides. There will be development on those. That's how I would read it.
Yeah, but
Like,
if it's, we
specific-
might not be able to stop it, but but our intent on the town plan is that, I don't know, all right.
Hey, because Phil missed, we had an earlier conversation on the notion of changing shalls that we've always been told to do in the town plan, to change to should. And if we had done that for the tower, we would be in a much worse position if we put shall in. So the discussion is, how do you reconcile a bylaw with the town plan? The bylaw can be the shall, if you will, statement about what exactly you can do or not. But if we don't have a unified bylaw and we change the town plan to all shoulds, a lot of ways will be up the creek. Now, there's an argument that, well, you know, it's a legal point, but the planning commission was feeling very unhappy with making all these changes from shall to should. And there's like, I want to say, 50 changes of that sort in this document. I had suggested that if we did the bylaw first, and I don't know, if we did the bylaw first, got the shalls in that, then come back to the town plan and change it to shoulds in the form that it probably could or should, will be.
I defer to the experts here.
Oh, sure, oh, yeah.
I'm only explaining to you what you missed in the conversation.
Yeah.
I got to watch a baseball game, so that's where.
Oh, boy.
Down to the school. Thank you, Jay.
So,
Well, yeah, we can move on. We can-
Yeah. And then underneath that, adding the scenic value, significant roads and waterways should be maintained. I've added a section on air quality. So talking about, there's a part about air resources, as a part of the elements that you need within your town plan.
Yeah.
So, so just some brief context, there's an important feature, quality of life. For this, just a little bit of discussion about the sources of air pollution. For goals, just pretty simple ones: maintain healthy air quality, support state and federal programs directed at the reduction of air pollution. Policies, I think this is a good one about biomass generation facilities and outdoor wood burning heating units, utilizing appropriate pollution control measures.
Yeah.
And then also industrial and commercial land uses that emit air pollution must utilize appropriate pollution control measures. So pretty,
I noticed that. That was a good catch. Thank you.
air quality added in there. Into water resources. Here you talk about the municipal roads general permit. It is, you know, a statewide program, but it only really applies to hydrologically connected road segments.
Huh.
Those are within, I think it's 100 yards of the waterway.
Uh-huh.
That's where you get,
Probably most of ours are though.
a lot of them are. So adding in a little factual detail there. This, there is another goal that town plans will support what the state creates. They call them tactical basin plans. Heartland, the entirety of Heartland is in one tactical basin plan, Basin 10. That includes the Occoquechee River, some small tributaries of Connecticut, and also some of the Black River. So just added some context here about tactical basin plans. And I think later at the end, also a policy that you support the recommendations in there, or consider implementing the recommendations in the tactical basin plan.
Why are they called tactical basin plans?
I don't know why they chose the word tactical. A basin plan is a basin plan, but I don't know why tactical per se. I think it was just to try to make it seem like it's more implementable than it really is.
Did you say we were 9 or 10?
10, basin 10.
Did not know.
No.
Yep, so here, at the bottom, a policy about rivers and ponds, support the maintenance and improvement of water quality through the policies and implementation actions listed in Basin 10 Tactical Basin Plan, where practicable. Here. So here, a should, a shall.
Apple.
Yeah, it's half acre when it comes to stormwater general permit with impervious surface. This, when you said 18 inches high, I believe you mean diameter. This is referring to culverts.
Uh-huh. So, yeah. So
Diameter.
yeah. Good catch.
And it's head walls is the term.
Oh, not headers.
That's the term for the structure where the
Okay.
water directs the water into the culvert. It's no longer the better back roads, it's better roads now.
Okay.
And you'll see some of these in here too, that's just where there was like
Okay, so-
2 or 3 spaces, just make it one space universally. When it comes to the types of flooding, and I've seen this same mistake in a couple other town plans, they say that there's 2 types of flooding: inundation and flash flooding. And flash flooding is just a type of inundation flooding. The other type of flooding concern that really is a major concern from Vermont is river erosion. So or fluvial erosion, so changing that here to fluvial erosion. Then also providing
There-
context about
Explain
fluvial erosion.
There are three types of flooding. There's surge from a storm, which you need a coastline for.
Right.
There's inland flooding, and there is flash flooding. Flash flooding is actually simply an abundant most of the time, but those are the three forms of flooding.
Well, flash flooding is inundation flooding, it just happens very fast, is the point.
Inundation, okay, if you wanna use, inundation isn't a word that's used.
In what context?
In describing flood. There's flash flooding, I mean, there's pluvial, there's fluvial, and there's flash flooding, which is simply heavy rainfall. If you
Right.
wanna use inundation, I've never seen inundation.
Is this
It's
a Vermont term,
actually-
maybe?
It's actually used in this section here, inundation. I didn't change that, that's here.
Alright.
So added more context about fluvial erosion. And again, more of the causes of flooding, distinct types of weather, cumulative impact of weather, and conditions on land at the time that flooding occurs, as well as the impermeable surfaces do not allow absorption of water. So adding more context here about causes of flooding. Just here adding regulatory floodways, that's what they're referred to on a FEMA floodplain map. Don't remember if there's something else in here.
Huh.
Diameter again, I think you meant diameter there. Flood resilience goals, you need to say that the town plan supports the restoration of floodplains and upland forest areas. I think you did this later in your forest block area, but it also makes sense to just have it here as well. And this is just to moderate flooding and fluvial erosion.
Oh dear.
With wetlands, there is the state buffer around any class 2 wetland and class 1 wetlands. So there won't be development in there automatically. Class 3 wetlands aren't mapped and generally not known. So it should make some sense here. This is one I kind of went back and forth on, and shall could be acceptable. Nah, let's keep it a shall. And then adding a similar recommendation that Heartland should protect and restore floodplains in upland forested areas to attenuate and moderate flooding and fluvial erosion where practicable. You forgot fens.
Good, because Eshwa is really a fen.
It's a fen and a swamp.
What's the difference? So fen have like,
Fen has acidic water and a bog has acidic water.
mhm.
One is ground fed and the other is fed by surface water.
Okay.
And marshes are just a more general term for like surface water fed. Swamps have woody vegetation in them, but usually also from like coastal areas or rivers. Added a paragraph here, some context about Eshwa Bog. At some point in here, you said you only had class 2 wetlands in Heartland. You were actually the only town in our region that has a class 1 wetland.
Huh.
That is Eshwa Bog.
Uh-huh.
And Eshwa Bog is only one of 11 wetlands designated as class 1 across the entire state of Vermont.
And that needs a 200-yard buffer. Is it
They
yard or
were, they were actually given a 200-foot protected buffer by the Secretary of the Agency of Natural Resources. Generally, it's a 100-foot buffer.
Okay.
So it's actually more stringent than is normally required. And it was that way because there's a lot of rare, threatened, and endangered plant species like orchids that are only known to have a few locations. So also calling that out specifically and the work of the Heartland Conservation Commission, who went through the process a couple of years ago to get Eshwa Bog reconsidered as a class 1 wetland. So I added some context in here about that.
Mhm.
And to give credit to, the Conservation Commission for petitioning, and I think like 3 years ago they did that.
Mhm.
Yeah, so most of your wetlands are class 2s or 3s. You didn't say what NWI is, so added that. I'll revert that one. Stay a shall. Vernal pools, yeah, sometimes during the fall and spring they fill up with water. Yeah, no edits to that in the groundwater section. I don't think there were any edits here. Good. Housing, there will be assembly guides coming up. This is just adding and in a couple of places where needed. COVID-19. The comment I had here was, you list the source of this as Realtor.com, but these are charts from Fred, from the Federal Reserve. Is this from a different source? I'm not sure where this came from.
I think it probably is from Realtor.com. The Fred ones are well documented. Let me just see. That statement is specific.
Yeah,
When you say juxtapose this with Vermont's housing inventory is measured by active real estate listings, we see a marked decline. I mean, that's inserted in two Federal Reserve exhibits, but it isn't.
but it isn't talking about what's in the charts. Or it's not
It's
talking about.
comparing, it's
what's in-
comparative to the chart.
Yeah, and that's what makes it.
That's why I use
unusual.
juxtapose. I mean, it can be moved, but,
No, that's another, I was just trying to make sure that,
yeah,
You
no,
didn't
that
go
is
with
not a
Fred
Fred,
and
that
get
is
there,
not a
yeah.
Fred source.
because there's
No.
two different charts from Fred.
Yeah, yeah. I don't have attribution to that chart right there, but that came out of the census.
Yeah, it looks like it's from the census.
Do you want those inserted, sources inserted, or do we have to bother with that?
Where you have data that you're introducing, particularly numbers, it's good to have citations for those.
Yeah, I thought I cited everything.
This, I believe that this would have come from there, just because you do mention the decennial census in the paragraph above, so it didn't.
That's where it
remark
came
that.
from.
Let's see. So here, this is a new requirement in town plans to have housing targets. Housing targets were created by something called the Statewide Housing Needs Assessment. The state of Vermont worked with a couple different organizations to create statewide targets, and then they disaggregated those targets at the RPC level, and then gave the work to the RPCs to then disaggregate those to towns. And I think it's based on two different scenarios, one with a low amount of, like the minimum amount of targets they want to see, and then a high amount, so there's like a minimum and a maximum of these targets. So this is just providing context for where these housing targets come from. That it comes from the housing needs assessment, that we were given those numbers, and that we disaggregated those for our towns. And then we provide our towns with these housing targets. To get regional approval now, this is required, this is one of the elements that's required for your housing chapter. So your targets townwide by, I think it's 2030, is a new construction of 150 to 220 units on the low end and the high end. And then in village areas, it's 83 to 121.
Hmm.
What are the consequences of that? So they're targets,
Right,
is it guidance? Is there
it's
any binding?
guidance.
Okay.
There's no penalty for not hitting these targets.
So it isn't tied to funding
No.
or anything at the state level? Okay.
Could you just say who is this organization that's making that recommendation?
So there first came out of a study that was created at the state. I think the state worked with a couple different housing organizations and housing agencies. Then it was given to the RPCs, statewide targets, broken up by the 11 RPC regions.
So it's just an NGO, it's not government officials?
No, it's also government officials.
Which government officials
Do you remember who else was involved with it?
Yeah, it was the Department of Housing and Community Development. They're required to do housing planning for the Housing and Urban Development Agency at the federal level. And they work with, I think, the Housing Finance Agency.
I think it was them, yeah.
And I think the Regional Planning Commission's also kicked in some funding to come up with this. And
Are we planning on a lot of growth in town? Do we have some industries that we're not aware of yet?
No, it's cool. The idea is that there's a lot of focus right now on increasing housing in the state of Vermont. And so the idea was to create some kind of language that would allow that to happen. The town plan, however, the village plans are just so big, and the mixed-use areas are just so big. And it's not a directive, but it's asking us to kind of pay attention because this is coming. So, we're just expected to know what the housing opportunities are in the town.
Was the study or the recommendations of the study adopted at the state level by the housing department?
It's written into statute that they had to create. The
Yeah.
study was actually in statute that they
Yeah,
were
okay,
created.
so it is state sponsored.
And then it's also a requirement to have these within your housing chapter.
I hope that helps.
Well, not really, but I appreciate your effort. It doesn't assuage my incredulity.
Yep. This, you have a sentence in the section below about housing areas, rural. The largest designated area in your town will be limited to the building of single-family homes. That actually violates state statute in a
It
couple
does.
of ways. For one, ADUs are allowed wherever a single family is allowed. So ADUs are, so as it's written right now, that's
What's an ADU?
accessory dwelling unit.
Okay, thank
It's
you.
like a granny flat or something, like a
Yeah.
smaller
Sure, mother-in-law apartment.
mother-in-law apartment.
Yeah,
Also, duplexes are allowed by right wherever single-family houses are. And the state law says has to be permitted.
Just,
What
just,
page is that on?
This is on,
71.
71.
Why am I missing it on the screen?
It's
really-
small, it's down in the lower left, it's tiny.
Oh, yeah, I see it.
is it just duplexes or, cause I know 1, 2, 3, and 4 units are considered single-family homes by certain government agencies. So is it stop at duplex or
It's
would a
duplexes.
triplex or a quad be allowable to?
I think, I can't remember what the actual standard is for those. I think they have to be generally allowed where single-family homes are. That means like conditional.
That would make sense.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, so there are more than just standalone single-family housing allowed in a district like that.
So you can't zone out.
Makes sense.
You can't, you also, yeah, you can't have an effective prohibiting multifamily housing in your town.
Thank you for pointing out the ones that are just illegal and off the.
Yeah, that's interesting. Contravention of the law. Yeah, we want that in our town plan. Jesus.
To help with the minutes, in your comments to the right, did you note those as illegal? Just, I mean, I wrote it here, but there's gonna be other ones that we missed.
Yeah.
Is that noted on the?
Violent
comments?
statute.
Violates statute.
Thank you. I don't have my glasses.
And then I think down here, no changes to the policies, or no, to the goals, I mean, to the policies. Adding, manufactured housing in here, you're also not allowed to prohibit manufactured housing by law. And you're also saying not allowed to, prohibit mobile homes as well, even if they're manufactured or mobile, either or, you can't do that.
Are those interchangeable words?
Not necessarily.
No, they're not.
Right, because they,
Mo-
houses they
mo-
build somewhere
mobile
off-site.
has
Manufactured,
wheels,
prefab, put on a structure,
yeah.
and mobile homes are, of course, on trailers. I can add, yeah, I should probably actually add,
Uh-huh.
so again, here, rural Orange area will continue to be limited to the building of single-family homes, also has to be struck for violating statute.
How does this, if at all, how does it relate to lot sizes?
Lot sizes, so in a zoning district, you establish lot sizes for different uses. In the case of single-family homes and duplexes, state law says a duplex cannot require any additional dimensional area other than what is required for a single family, so effectively 1 = 2 when it comes to dimensional standards. You can require more for multifamily, especially, but not if it's in an area with water and sewer. Those also have to be on the same, I think it's up to 4, has to be on the same, whatever you set for single family minimum lot size. You don't have water and sewer, so that wouldn't come into effect here, but
I'm thinking more in terms of Act 250 projects, you know, that, have there been changes to that, to Act 250 to allow denser development or to?
well, there's been a lot of temporary exemptions given to housing projects in areas with water and sewer. Those wouldn't apply here. I think it's only in areas with water and sewer, right? Act 250 exemptions. So that has to be struck. Here, there was actually no verb in this sentence, so I didn't know how to actually read it. So I struck with between, because it also didn't make
It's
sense.
not between, right?
Ongoing collaborations with between, so I struck that. Should be continued. That's what I added. We can change that if you want to something else.
Don't worry about it.
Yeah, you can pass over those, we have bigger fish to fry.
That's right. Okay, and then there's new policies in here about supporting the development of new housing and the rehabilitation of existing housing. This is for that it would be safe, sanitary, and community located approximately to employment and commercial centers and coordinated with provision of necessary public facilities and utilities. That's pretty much verbatim one of the planning goals.
And that's a new item, a new
Yep.
requirement. And
Yep.
that's-
So that's number 6 here, under
Right,
housing
page
policies.
72.
Yep. Support the development of multifamily manufactured housing in areas that are readily available in similar locations to those generally used for single-family conventional dwellings. That's another goal the state has for planning. And then also supporting the development of accessory dwelling units within or attached to a single-family residence to allow for cost-effective care and supervision of relatives or disabled or elderly persons in close proximity to single-family residences. So more housing policies here, which reflect what's the planning goals of the state for housing. Adding those policies, I thought it would make sense also to add some recommendations that you consider the provision of necessary public facilities and utilities in planning for new housing, particularly for affordable housing for residents of moderate and low income. Also consider allowing the construction of accessory dwelling units and duplexes, multifamily units, and mixed-use buildings. That's something state law says you have to allow it in single family. In the process of creating bylaws, that's something that a planning commission or select board can consider doing. Not required to do it, but can consider it. Transportation. I don't think there was a lot that added in transportation or changed. Just a reference to US Route 4 in the northwest corner of the town here as a public highway. Having V-Trans as an acronym, you use it later. Section symbol here. Yeah, I don't think there's really much transportation. Again, a section symbol. When it comes to private roads. So the sentence is a little interesting because there's no legal mechanism in place to apply the standards to privately owned and maintained roads, which may be dedicated to the town in the future. You do have a little bit more control over that through bylaws or even through ordinances. You can establish right-of-way standards that also apply to private roads. So there is sort of that, and the state says it minimally has to be 20 feet, but you can also exceed that. You can say it has to be between 30 or 50, depending on what the road's gonna be in the future.
Feet wide, feet long?
Feet wide.
Gotcha.
So would you have a suggestion for rewording that sentence? Or just removing
Yeah,
Or take it out.
or just take out after the comma. That's what I believe would be the best cause.
it? Okay.
Hey, do the regs, when you think about road width,
Mhm.
is it the absolute width or is it from a center point?
No, it's the width, the absolute width,
So,
as written in statute.
so it could just snake around anything as long as it's the correct width, right?
Yeah. And there's reasons why we would not recommend you just go with 20. I mean, 20 is very small, especially if you're gonna have two traveled ways, plus space for ditches, slopes. 20 is not feasible for even having two 12-foot travel lanes. So we recommend 30 at minimum, 50 is better. 50 allows you to have space for two travel lanes, slopes down to a ditch, 2 feet of ditches, and then depending on the context, you could be sloping either way, but yeah, something much bigger than the state minimum, you need at 20 feet. Yep. These are just small grammatical edits. Just like at Windsor, Vermont, just the Vermont part there. Aaron Rail didn't have any additions there. I don't think. Existing, okay, yeah, shall not be impaired or should be impaired. You could also have through bylaws and access management policies and bylaws or as an independent ordinance, connections must be maintained. That's usually the place to do that.
Okay.
Stagecoach is now Tri-Valley Transit.
Okay.
Yep, they merged with another organization, became Tri-Valley Transit. Here, just wherever there's like a paragraph and you have a number, not referring to like percentage or like dollar figure or something, usually use spell that in numbers. I will say, with energy, you didn't have it available to you when you were doing this. We now, with our regional plan being adopted in February, we now have new targets, data, and energy maps, which we just released last week.
Okay.
So I did, you had energy data and targets within here, I did update that to
Okay.
the 2020, what's in the 2025 town packets. And actually, this is a question for the planning commission, do you want the town to have all of the requirements for an enhanced energy plan? Enhanced energy plan is something that towns can opt into doing. It's not required, but with an enhanced energy plan, your town plan is given more weight when it comes to Act 248 proceedings. Those refer to the siting of energy facilities. So if someone proposes to build a solar field, your town plan is given what's called due consideration in all situations. But if you go through the extra effort of creating what's called an enhanced energy plan,
Yes,
then you have more weight in those proceedings. I believe you did that with your last town plan at some point. I don't think you did it at the time, I think you did it later.
so where are we with that?
Well, the readopted town plan doesn't have that. I believe you had it with the old one.
going back even before that.
Yeah,
Is there an argument not to do that, or?
Well, is there material that discusses the positives and negatives of both of those options so we could make an informed decision?
Yeah, there's state guidance about it. I did include new parts in here that would make it an enhanced energy plan. There's more you have to have. You absolutely have to have siting, you have to have siting recommendations, guidance for energy facilities. You also have to have a section on equity, so I did add a section on equity.
Equity in what sense?
Equity, discussing the impacts of citing renewable energy resources here or there, or how are you making your policies for transportation, thermal energy, all of that available to everyone?
See, it sounds good, but would we be getting in on something we couldn't deliver on, or that would become onerous for the town?
It doesn't make the town have to do anything. It just gives the town more weight during those 248
Okay.
proceedings.
So we're not committing to anything.
No,
but if someone wants to build a solar field in an inconvenient area, is
Yeah.
that something we need?
yeah, because you can call out specifically, not within these areas, not within wetlands, not within floodplains, not within priority forest blocks.
Okay, we'll have a discussion about it.
So, but there's language,
That I've
Right,
added,
that-
so, yeah, to make it something that can attain, enhanced energy. Yeah, so I've updated the numbers, slightly different, so it's gonna look like a lot of red here, it's just changing out the numbers and the charts and the tables.
okay,
So your megawatts, megawatt hours converting into megawatts.
can we agree that this could be just changed right now?
Sorry?
Can we agree this could be just changed right now without having to go back and check it?
Let's just do it all at once.
Yeah, oh, another thing, this is all data from 2022. The data previously was 2017 data, so it is more up to date, there's
Thank you.
no more up-to-date data than 2022 at this time.
Okay. So can we just fix that now?
Yep,
Yeah, that's, we've
Are you
gotta be
okay
in
with
there. Yeah, I am.
Okay,
Any disagreement?
done.
You okay?
What page is it, you know?
83.
My only reluctance is to see one section of a plan and not know.
Yeah, I wouldn't do it piecemeal.
I wouldn't do it now.
Yeah,
It's not gonna gain us any time
Yeah.
because we're gonna go back and look through it and we'll see if it's referenced or if it makes sense. It's just, it's
we
not
could
in
confuse
context.
ourselves by doing that.
Does that make sense to you?
Yeah, absolutely. We're not gaining anything by doing it. It's gotta be done, we will do it, but if we do it all at
I'm not gonna
once.
go back and
we'll-
check
we'll-
Brian's work on this.
No,
To be
that's,
honest.
Kate, that's not at all. I completely agree with you. What he's done is fine within the context of what we see. But if there's something else we need to think about, fine, the numbers, I'm sure he's got it right.
Okay, in here, simplify your data sources in the table above. I don't know why it said SAS for the American Community Survey. Also, at some point, the acronym for the Department of Public Service is PSD. There's a different one that's, Division of Public Safety, or yeah, so it's actually PSD, not DPS. I think it's the Department of Public Safety. Same with greenhouse, what the acronym is. Ahead of it. And then, of course, in the context of your discussion about the energy consumption, changing the numbers in the text because it pulls out what's in the table above. You had a 3.8% decrease in energy consumption since 2017.
Oh,
Yep.
I wonder why that would be.
in general, it is going down just because of conservation measures and weatherization,
Cost maybe too.
maybe.
Frans van de Ven. Just weatherization.
So yeah, updated the table with new figures. This is like one new column, this is just taken out of the green sheet directly. So fuel source, households, what percentage of households use what. The estimated square footage, that's PSD's tools gave us that estimation. This is something, the numbers here are actually different than what the Division of Public Service has. And for hydro generation, they had more like 12,000 megawatt hours. I know this comes from the old EAN dashboard, Energy Action Network dashboard. That has now been updated and it no longer includes a lot of like town-specific data on it. So I can't go back and see why the numbers are different. I trust that these numbers are correct, it's different than what the state reported.
Is that on a yearly average or?
Yeah, they have the generation data from 2022, so from all the sources, hydro, solar, wind,
Yeah, well,
biomass.
you highlighted hydro.
Yeah, because it's the comment.
It's very
left here.
variable, it's dependent on what the rainfall is, so it's all over the place.
Right. Do we know what year this number came from? It's possible that this might be a different data year.
Probably.
The data from PSD is from 2022. This data, I don't know what year it is.
We didn't do this section of the plan,
No.
energy commission.
Okay. I can update that so it has the data from PSD in it.
And I did some updating, just,
You did?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I can't tell you how many, well, I can tell you how many EVs in 2022 were or how many EVs existed in your town in 2022.
yeah, they took, that's gone,
What is,
the charging station.
This is gone. This is the parking lot, right?
Yeah.
It's gone?
I think you can still plug into the power, the light poles.
Think so? All right, well, maybe don't make that.
You can plug them into the light poles.
Just the regular
Yeah.
current, yeah, okay.
Just like plugging this into
Yeah,
the
your
wall.
house, yeah.
It's very slow.
Okay.
that's for the people that moved into the resting areas. If you remember seeing them there,
Oh, yeah.
in their tents and
It was
whatnot.
a park and stay, not a park and ride.
Yeah,
Park and live.
Okay, so also in this section, added a new section about energy scarcity and costs and a discussion about that. There's, I think, 5 things you're required to have in statute for your energy chapter. Scarcity, costs, needs, problems, resources. You have needs and resources just by talking about, what do you have in your town? You're talking about that, or you pointing out the obvious need that you need to weatherize homes and you need to reduce vehicle miles traveled and something like that. You're talking about needs there. Scarcities and costs, there wasn't like a clear, oh, this is scarcities and costs you're talking about. In this section too, really talking about, just various different sources of energy generation and what kind of energy is used. So talking about fuel oil prices, talking about, that you don't expect there to be a shortage of thermal energy, especially not of the next 8 years of this plan. Don't foresee that. So it's mostly the wording in here has been taken from other plans. As energy problems, talking about the cost of implementing a lot of new energy infrastructure. Also added about, a need to harden power lines against natural disasters more. I don't know to what extent that actually is a problem in Heartland. I know you've largely been spared from
It's a,
natural disasters.
it's a problem.
But it's a problem, okay. I also added a little bit in here about property assessed clean energy districts. Those are a thing that never really caught on in Vermont. They were proposed like a decade ago, I think 12 years ago. I just have it in here, just because it's a way for cost burdened people, residents of Heartland, to potentially get upfront capital to do weatherization projects or install energy generation facilities. It never really caught on. I don't believe you ever voted one into existence. It has to be voted into by the residents. And it just creates a special assessment district, which that provides the upfront capital, and then over a course of 20 years, residents pay it back. What they took as the upfront capital, they pay it back over 20 years. I don't know how the actual like rates of that work, but it's just a means of doing that, and that helps having something in there about pace, which was actually used to be in your 2017 town plan. I think it was taken out. Is just a thing you can talk about later on as, evidence that we care about equity, because we're considering how can low cost burden or low income residents potentially benefit from things like weatherization or switching over to heat pumps or something like that.
This is part of this recent, energy and coming out of the, federal government in terms of,
No,
maintaining or not maintaining, but, guiding.
yeah, no, these caught on in a couple other states, and Vermont tried implementing them in like 2012 or 2013, but they never really caught on. I think at the time towns realized what a big administrative burden it would be to do this, so they opted not to. It's not a thing that's really talked about anymore, but mostly here talking about it as a thing that you could think about doing to say that you're thinking about the ways that you can help low income or cost burden residents eventually, weatherize homes or do what else.
So I guess what I was trying to get at is, what is the political energy? And what I hear you saying is that it's really kind of dead in the water.
It's kind of dead in the water. And the federal government, as far as I know, never really had any involvement with these. It was just states taking them on themselves. Yep, so similarly, section devoted to energy problems. Yes, I did add about consistency with the grid being a problem, power may fluctuate. And another part, we talked about having few three-phase transition lines, so I put that in here too. Especially because three-phase is necessary for any large new energy facilities.
Can you just put an R in Heartland there? I don't know, third line down.
Oh, I didn't catch that. Yep.
You're up against a stickler here.
No, that's, I appreciate that.
Hey, it's our town, we need to get the name right.
I'm not throwing rocks, I'm just saying.
More typos.
So this is 2022
Okay.
generation of megawatt hours. Yeah, that's the latest tools that we use to generate this don't really rely on the VCGI anymore for mapping support. So just removing that. Statewide goals are fine. Section on specific goals. So updating this based on what's in the new, given as targets for the town. And again, like housing targets, there's no penalty for not achieving these targets. Doesn't affect anything.
Can I come back to one thing? You had mentioned about just accepting the numbers at straight value. You don't, if we don't say to you tonight, oh, we're gonna use them, because I'm sure we're gonna use your numbers, but we're not gonna save any time if we say, oh, yeah, include or page 23 or 78, whatever it is okay. I'm thinking about what you had mentioned. There's no savings in your process review time by us not saying, yeah, just use the page the way it is.
So,
Someone's gonna have to go back,
Well,
yeah.
who in the end is gonna, well, we're gonna have to do it, we're gonna have to go through this page by page and say, yeah, leave it in, as we haven't read it. As we read it, we gotta go back and say, gee, let's just leave the numbers, whatever page it is, and all the red numbers are on, say, yeah, we'll just leave the numbers once we see its context to everything else. Still gotta do it,
Here's the problem.
yeah.
Two Rivers has now taken over the job of making sure we're compliant.
Yeah, I understand.
And so what he's been doing is making sure we're up to date and compliant.
Yeah.
That's where I am with this.
I got you.
And I know you don't wanna, you wanna maintain control
No,
for
just-
now.
No, just review. I don't know who in the end is gonna take all these changes and he's got the original, and just say, okay, we're gonna accept this and this and this, but not that, and this and this and this and that.
Steve can incorporate all this pretty easily.
It's done, I mean, all you have to do is push the
yeah, I
button.
can just accept them all.
Right.
Yeah. But we're gonna have the problem with the shalls and the shoulds. That's the problem, I think.
Well, more,
I think everything that I don't mean to get off track of what you're doing, but I wanted to come back now that the numbers are here and say, God, we're probably just fine.
but that'll be our next meeting,
Yeah,
because it's mostly in the revenue section.
Yeah, most of the shoulds and shalls are within the land use chapter, only like 3 or 4 of them are outside of it. But, yeah, in this case, I mean, these numbers are the 2022 numbers. And targets generated based on that, based on the state's rules that we were told to use.
we have full faith in what you come up with as far as the numbers go.
One thing here, the tools no longer have specific targets for new efficient wood heat systems. The state's kind of moving away from that, realizing it's just not that great. Yeah, separating use of renewables in heating from for residences versus commercial establishments. Yeah, the tools we use now separate those statistics, so it's a new line in the table. Same for biodiesel vehicles. It's not really, biodiesel's not really catching on either. The state didn't mandate creation of targets for those either.
Boy, what a change that is, I mean, it was so important before.
Yeah. Okay. This part down here. I don't know what. Yeah, there was a link here where it said link removed, so I just struck that. Weatherization, some small edits here. I don't know what the WX. I've never seen weatherization abbreviated WX as an acronym. So these are just grammatical edits in this section here. This, I had a question for you guys. It looks like it starts 1 and it talks about heating energy, so thermal energy. And then it just ends after point A and B. Did this also at one point have sections about transportation and about renewable energy generation or electricity?
I wonder if we cut some of it in an effort to consolidate.
Could be.
Yeah, whatever you think will look, be
Appropriate.
better, yeah, appropriate or contextual, go ahead.
What page are we on, please?
92. Yeah, use of renewable energy and heartland. I mean, I can add
Yeah, right.
something about transportation, about using electric vehicles. can add more context about electricity and, energy generation from renewables, but yeah, I figured you must have had more content about those other sectors here. But, I don't know.
The person is not here tonight, who did all the coordination on this, so,
Okay,
we're missing an important member tonight.
gotcha.
Bear that in
So-
mind.
Yeah, I don't know, that might have been, I thought that was just accidental or something for me. Energy storage, don't have a lot of edits in this, I mean, mostly what you're saying in this area is just state guidance about energy siting. So you're talking about prime preferred areas. And then areas that, with possible constraints and what that is, which is good to have as a discussion, you provide context about it. Later on though, it's not clear that you mean for any of these to be like citing considerations that are actually implemented. So when it gets to the recommendations part and policies part, adding citing standards there. And for both an enhanced energy plan and just in general, that's a good thing to have. You're required to have that for an enhanced energy plan. Yeah, so all this is just context for energy siting reasons. And I had a couple of comments in here too. This relates more to the things that Kevin's gonna talk about next time. So in North Harlan, you have an industrial land use district. So we won't get into that too much now, but
Areas and districts.
yeah. This, I believe you mean there's a section about like citing in general, but there's no real standards or policies in there. It's more about the issues with like topography and having rivers and streams. So I don't
Know about that.
really know like what you can take from the section and apply it as a sort of policy. So I thought it would make sense to strike that part.
Yeah.
Yep, you also talked about the capacity of distribution lines here too. So I'm just putting that in there under the section called problem.
Can you start a sentence with a 3 number?
You shouldn't. Here it's 3-phase power. So it's, just because it's always referred to 3-phase that way. Okay, and then before I get into recommendations, adding a new section about equity considerations. So the standard for enhanced energy plan is you consider equity when it comes to means to achieve your transportation targets, your electric generation targets, your weatherization targets. And you're also considering it when it comes to siting energy facilities in your town.
Excuse me 1 minute, when you're saying the town of Portland is considering, do you mean the planning commission? Or do you mean Two Rivers and the planning commission? How is the town of Portland? How can you say that the town is doing that?
So
Has there been a vote, has there been something that the town is considering this?
well, in this case, yeah, I would say the planning commission is considering equity impacts in this section. The
So
town plan considers equity impacts.
So shouldn't it say the planning commission is saying this? Because, if this goes out for a vote, some people may not want to vote for it. They might say no, I mean, they're canceling DEI everywhere, all over the country. So isn't that gonna affect us in some way?
Well, not unless the town got a federal grant for doing some sort of energy thing and they looked at what was in the town plan, but they wouldn't be required to do that.
Do you think there'd be a lot of energy grants come out?
Don't expect there to be many more. I can change it to say the planning commission.
Well, that's just one person's opinion, that's all.
So, yeah, here bringing back stuff about PACE districts, about other programs from Efficiency Vermont, Capstone, that you're supportive of those, you would love to see those things implemented here. Plan would love to see these things implemented here. That you're supporting the minimization of energy from transportation by promoting active transportation and multimodal transportation. So, talking about that. Also saying that your patterns of land use don't place inequitable, undue, or unfair burdens on or costs in any segments of the town's population. So this is all just written to comply with the parts that are needed for an enhanced
Can you
energy
tell me the
plan.
page?
98 and 97.
And your was his comment on 98?
97, 98, yeah.
97, okay.
Yeah, and so for like transportation, you support the Dial Line program from Tri-Valley Transit. And you support, more sidewalks, bike lanes, things like that. They're pretty low cost. So then when it comes to policies, so energy goals, added more because there's need for some more of these for, if you want to enhance energy, but also just because you need this just as for part of your energy element. So to increase awareness and use of energy conservation practices through educational outreach to the public, show leadership on it, the town leadership on this. To promote electric grid and power line hardening, to implement a transportation system that reduces the emission of greenhouse gases, including parking right access, biking paths, and sidewalks. To increase the utilization of heat pumps by residences and commercial establishments. And lastly, to increase the use of light-duty electric vehicles. I don't think these are very controversial. Yeah, here you're talking about the siting guidelines, which don't really have specific siting guidelines, so just struck that for that reason. Adding some new ones, and these ones really do get into later, well, number 5 is. Number 4 first is just promoting energy efficient travel by residents by encouraging carpooling, use of public transportation, telecommuting, home businesses, e-bikes, electric vehicles, and safe bike routes. That's a useful policy to have. Then when it comes to siting generation and transmission projects, you reinforce the traditional patterns of growth. The applicant should take all feasible measures to minimize the visual impact of the project and its impact on the town's rural character. So also exclude new energy generation, transmission, distribution projects from the following areas because of their value: floodways, river corridors, wetlands, rare, threatened, endangered species, or habitat. So saying to the PUC in those proceedings, don't do it here. Similarly, you want to see them in areas where there's no reasonable alternative, and also asking them to minimize and mitigate adverse effects in these other areas, so like historic districts, landmarks, sites, public parks and recreation areas, scenic roads, vistas and view sheds, special flood hazard areas, so outside of the regulatory floodway, public and private drinking water supplies, primary agricultural soils, forest blocks mapped in the plan, necessary wildlife habitat, natural communities, and wildlife migration travel corridors. Also having a standard calling for screening of facilities from public view is important. You can only require screening to the effect that it doesn't interfere with the function of it, so you can't, you can't like say you need to plant something to block the solar panels from getting sunlight. But you can require it to be, or ask for it to be not visible from the roadway if you need the properties. So the standard there is just to the maximum extent possible, use vegetation, structures, or features shall be screened. And just a couple of different things about screening. You had one in here about pollinator-friendly spaces, got that, of course. You didn't say what RVs and CVs were, so I have that in there.
Okay.
Oh, that's probably fine. You did it though. With the MERP program, you did get energy audits for a couple of buildings. Good. And then in here, in terms of recommendations, support income-based financial incentives, rebates and programs for low and moderate income residents, from Efficiency Vermont, Capstone, and other organizations. You support renewable energy generation projects that are cited in areas identified in the plan as preferred sites. Some other things these are mostly about considering things you could do. Town should consider instituting an energy efficiency purchasing policy. So like consider the emissions from like highway equipment or something. And the standard is more considerate, it's not requiring it to be done. Should consider energy efficiency and the use of renewable energy when planning for capital projects or when adopting a capital budgeting program. That you will participate in the PUC's review of new generation and transmission facilities. And then you will work with electric service providers to create more resilient and hardened electric infrastructure.
David, how much more time do you have for this agenda item? We want to be respectful of the rest of your evening.
We're cool. Let's finish it up.
Okay, swap the maps with the new ones that are just created. There's wind, solar, and you had existing energy generation. You left out the biomass and hydro. But it's okay because they're something you can add to the end of the document.
Hydro and what else?
Hydro and biomass.
Maps, you mean, is that what you're saying?
Yep. Utilities and facilities. You had a section about fire protection and then a fire and rescue services section, which were actually, there's like a verbatim sentence in both of these. Okay. So I deleted the fire and rescue services and just added the one sentence that was different in that part back up into here about it being adequate for the next 8 years. As another thing with your utilities and facilities section, you want to talk about emergency medical services. There's no real mention of that in this section. It is useful to add that in. Other plans, you know, that if you don't have a hospital in your town, if you don't have an EMS service provider, they just talk about where residents could go for services like Dartmouth Hitchcock.
Yeah.
Or other places.
Can you call that medical and what?
Just like medical services.
What kind of things would be in there?
Like, I think of like Randolph's plan, they have Gifford Hospital, so they talk about Gifford.
Sure.
Or you can say you don't have any hospitals or primary care providers in the town, but residents rely on these
Gotcha.
places, or like the VA hospital. So, it just, some more context about that.
Just wrote it down, so.
Yeah. Yeah, and that also requires a lot more local knowledge, because I really don't know where people go for medical services here. Should, that could be a shall, that could be a should here. You're reviewing its police protection contracts. I know we'll do that anyway, but. There's not a lot more in this section. Trails, schools, versus. Yeah, you should investigate the capacities of existing cemeteries.
Equals ever active, it says.
Yeah.
They're inactive in the cemetery.
I did add more about childcare. It's another thing that a lot of towns don't normally remember to include. There's actually a specific planning goal about childcare. And that includes a bunch of stuff that is really kind of beyond the control of towns to influence, like supporting childcare workforce development or financing. Not expecting towns to really do much, but just say you support it. So I added more context about childcare. So the two different classifications for regulated childcare facilities, there's a registered childcare home, there's also a licensed program. You talked about the two licensed programs you have in Heartland, that there is also one registered childcare. Similar to the context you provided, added two-sentence thing about the childcare home in Heartland. Yeah, it's up in North Heartland, with a capacity of 9 children. I also added a section about vocational training. Supporting adult education and vocational training is another goal for planning. This, I think, I tweaked it a little bit, but this came from West Windsor's town plan. I figured that was pretty applicable to here, so, you know, in terms of locations that people go. So Springfield, White River Junction, so to the community college there. Also the community college in Claremont, Granite State College in Lebanon. And then Dartmouth also offers some higher education and continuing education programs. Oh, shows that in Windsor. No, sorry, I'll just delete this last section. It's not that's specific to Windsor. Okay, so then in here, added some policies that you support access to education and vocational training opportunities. And that's the text from the planning goal is sufficient to realize the full potential of your residents. That you will continue support of Heartland's childcare facilities. And then you didn't have citing or standards about telecommunication facilities in this chapter. Your old plan I know had 1 or 2, and there weren't any now. So I took some from our regional plan and put them in here. So, you know, similar to like for the siting standards for energy facilities, that any cell towers will be excluded from floodways, wetlands, rare, threatened, or endangered species or habitats. And then also designed to avoid or minimize the adverse effect on historic districts, landmarks, state or federally designated scenic byways, and municipally designated scenic roads and view sheds. And then special flood hazard areas, because your flood hazard regulations do allow for construction of new buildings within the special flood hazard.
What page are you on, please?
116.
Okay.
Another one about avoiding the fragmentation of priority forest blocks. That they should demonstrate that if there's space for co-location of that on another existing facility, that will be done. Minimization of site clearing and highland from highly visible roadways. Asking also for the minimization of aesthetic impacts, mostly by the use of cell towers or camouflaging it in some way so it's less visible. Asking for the minimum height necessary to achieve coverage. You can't have a standard where you just can't see it. It has to be, like I said, higher than the trees around it just to get the signal out. And then more or less using vegetation, using screening to actually hide the compound part of it from public view. Or if it's in a more developed area, utilizing architectural styles or other means to sort of camouflage it within a more developed area. And also being located downgrade of the ridge so that you don't see the compound.
That's interesting.
You can qualify these things, yeah. Again, should, shall here. In this case, you're talking about improving solid waste reduction and disposal. And this one, just to be more compliant with the goal for childcare, that you will integrate childcare concerns, including financing, infrastructure, business assistance, and workforce development into your planning process. Not trying to specifically say you need to do anything, but just that you should be considering it as you're thinking about this plan, bylaws, anything else. Okay. this just adds context of what this chapter is, the regional context, that you review the plans of other neighboring communities. Yeah, and then updating the dates on some of these plans, like Woodstock amended their town plan in 2023. This one was actually adopted in 2020. Oh, I think, yeah, that is correct. One of them was wrong, or, yeah. And then, of course, as the Regional Planning Commission, we just adopted our new plan in 2025 in February. And it's now gonna remain in effect for 8 years, not 5 anymore. And I don't have any new policies or recommendations for that part. For economic development, there's shalls and shoulds here.
I'm sorry.
Here, just calling out specifically what your designated village centers are: Four Corners, Three Corners, North Heartland. You have 3 of them. You have some statistics. And also adding these goals just to be supported a strong and diverse local economy that provides satisfying, rewarding, and remunerative job opportunities for all residents. That's a planning goal. And that you support new economic growth that does not impair your environment. And again, calling it out, commercial strip development are discouraged from locating in the town. Adding a policy that industrial sites should be screened from adjacent residences. Good one to have. And then calling for new commercial developments to be encouraged to locate within the town's village areas as mapped on your future land use map. This one I struck because you'll never have to do this again. The state has taken away the requirement to renew it, so don't worry about it.
What is it? I can't read it.
Oh, it's your village designations.
Village designations.
Gotcha.
They're gone, you never have to worry about it again.
Yeah, we used to, and now it's done. We used to have to reapply every few years.
Really? Yeah.
Yeah, don't have to now. And then encourage the growth and development of diversified agricultural operations and forestry operations that are environmentally sound. It's a planning goal again. You have a section on forest blocks, and there's not really much in here. I edited, I don't think I had much except comment. Yeah, that, new subdivision and construction shall take reasonable steps. That you would need subdivision bylaws or subdivision sections for that to come into effect. Yeah, this one, I forgot to both look this up, but you have a policy in here that a development project can only have a maximum of 5 lots or a maximum of 5 units and must meet other provisions in the rural area section of the town plan. Don't know how much statutory authority you actually have to do that. Don't think it's, I'm not one of our experts on subdivision, but here,
What page are we on?
127. Yeah, I don't know. And, yeah, something to look up more about.
Well, it would be, if it was more than that, it would be an Act 250 anyways.
It would 6, yeah, right now it would be an Act 250.
So you think we can't?
I don't know that you can say that. I don't know that you can limit
No, the only,
subdivisions.
the town plan it isn't a zoning ordinance.
Right.
Yeah,
It also really only would right now apply in 250 cases. Which would also be weird because that wouldn't even trigger a 250 case. Subdivision of 5 lots wouldn't trigger 250. It's a, I don't know how to think it's really unusual. Okay, I think then an implementation, which is really kind of the end of it because the rest of it's appendices. Yeah, I just have a note here to just update this with any new recommendations. So, oh, yeah, and I cut that one out, so you won't have to do that, about renewing your village center designation. But that's it for edits, excluding the land use part.
Well, thanks a lot. Yeah, I'm sorry I went off on the first started. I thought it was.
Well,
Well, thank you. It's a lot of work.
You suggested updates are clear and, well documented, so we'll have an easy time working through the document. Just, I think that.
So, but what's our timeline? Because we have a June hearing.
June hearing on what?
Have you set a hearing?
Hmm?
Have you set a hearing?
Are we talking about June?
We haven't warned you.
I know,
we haven't
but,
We've been talking about.
haven't we
Yeah.
talked about a June
I'm not sure we're
hearing?
gonna.
You're talking about on the town plan? On the
Yeah.
2025 plan?
Yeah.
We got a few issues to go through before we get that far.
yeah,
Kevin is coming here.
Kevin, for the June meeting, will be here,
Yeah.
to talk about land use.
yeah. So we have a month here to, few weeks here to get this cleaned up. And then we'll look at land use. So, we're not ready to warn a meeting anytime yet. I guess that was a hope.
So when's our next meeting?
Well, we'll decide.
Okay,
More to be discussed at least. Meeting's not over yet.
So we're gonna discuss that tonight or?
Oh, we have some other,
Yeah, we will when we get there.
yeah, with other things in there.
So that's everything you need to show us tonight,
Urgent.
Yeah.
and we appreciate it. So guys, I'm gonna suggest that, given the time, that we set our next meeting and continue our other discussions about what we're gonna do about administrative assistance for another time. Any thoughts? I know you have, I know,
No,
but
There
there's
was
some
a-
things,
No, I
and
wanted
this
to-
here, I just wanted to tell you that after considering this, I would prefer you do this, to let this go for tonight.
Yeah,
Let me,
let's,
you don't have to talk after the meeting.
yeah, that's fine. The only
Okay.
other thing that I wanted to mention.
Yeah, so we're all set with you guys.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Yeah. Yeah. Jeez.
I thought we were so close.
Okay. So, let's talk about the next meeting. Call up a calendar. Yeah,
Are you finishing the meeting?
we're working on finishing it up, yep.
Okay, are you going to get to the agenda item additional discussion about the need for the speed help?
I would like not to do that tonight. I would like to,
Sorry, I came in.
oh, well. Phil?
Good progress for you guys.
Phil, I don't think there's a conflict here with that. I think the rules are pretty clear.
It was on the agenda,
I understand.
but the town manager and I were rather upset with it. The town manager wrote to you and to Jay, and when I spoke to him today, there was no response.
I
This
responded.
morning, anyway.
I responded 2 days ago.
He didn't have anything of substance to explain. Anyway, we can talk about it another time. I don't want to keep your time.
And I think we should.
Yep.
Okay.
Did no one work this? No one really
Okay,
About 3 days.
next meeting.
No, I'm gonna make a motion that we stay for a few more minutes and talk about some other things.
If it's not on the agenda.
It's not on the agenda.
I made a motion. We don't have to have it. I don't necessarily wanna talk with what you're talking about, or what Phil wanted to hear, slightly different subject.
I'm sorry, it's not on the agenda.
It doesn't have to be on the agenda if I made a motion. As long as the motion, somebody seconds it, we can talk about it.
When is the next planning committee meeting?
We don't know yet. We're gonna decide that tonight.
Should we get back on the first Wednesday schedule?
I think so. I'm waiting for a second.
Oh, I'll second.
Okay.
This is something that I brought tonight. Well, maybe it's tucked in here.
What's on your mind, Joe?
What's on my mind is, I went in. You said, I don't know who you replied, I think you replied to everybody on John's email that we had.
No,
No, we didn't know about it.
no, I sent it to you and Dan.
And I only knew about it because you sent it to me. I wasn't copied of the original.
No, the original was a single document.
Okay, I wanna read this, but I also did I'm not talking about going to the town, I'm not talking about anything that John brought up, but I'd surely like to know what I made a copy of, and where the hell Good, I'm glad we're here.
What do you see?
Just a minute, I'm trying to find it there. I went to look to see, we've had problems about, not problems, issues about how things get funded in that. No, John's point was well taken, we're not going back to ask for money or anything like that. But then again, we never said that's what we were gonna do, we were just gonna talk on the subject in general. And so I was curious to know how things can get funded other than through the town of Heartland, if that's what need be. So I went in and I looked up Title 24, Chapter 117, and it says,
Yeah.
any way we want to raise money, be it privately or not, we're entitled to do what we need to do to accomplish our job. Even private money, we kick in $50 each because we want a lawyer, I mean, whatever it happens to be. So there's other things to talk about, how we can make our way in the future or
Yeah.
find volunteers or something like that.
Yes.
And I thought that was important. The issue with John's letter is that he assumed something that just wasn't true, that we're going to come back. We never mentioned anything about asking for an extended budget or anything. It was just a general discussion within our purview. And I wanted that to be clear, but also, and people miss the point tonight, is I looked up to see what our duties were. If we decide that we don't want to create or vote or approve a town plan, we got one, then it's not gonna happen, because we're the ones that create a town plan.
Correct.
And we're the ones that also correct a unified bylaw. We're there. So if we were to sit here tonight and say, I'm really nervous about striking out the shalls, I gotta tell you. So if we're here and we decide that we don't want to strike them out, and then say, well, then why don't we work on unified bylaws then that's what we're gonna do, and nothing else is gonna happen. The town can't do it, just the other people can't. It's not as though we wanna create a problem, but we really have to decide what we wanna do on shoulds and shalls.
Yeah, that's what we're gonna do next meeting, I think, with Kevin.
Well,
I'd like to hear his views, of course,
I understand
but
that.
I understand, I raised the question.
Yeah, at least.
So I'm with you.
know, I was okay with what we went through tonight
Yeah.
on those sections, but it's, yeah, then everyone
But
can see
I'm
that it's
just,
land
I'm
uses.
opening up a little thought process so you can think of what all other alternatives are, because we're gonna hear back on what we talked about tonight, well, why aren't you working on the town plan and all this other business, it's
Yeah.
out there. So I just wanted us to say there's other alternatives, yes, we'll wait for Kevin. Kevin was the one that always told us, use shalls, so what the hell's going on?
Yeah.
I mean, I was never an expert on it.
No, but that's why I wanted,
Somewhere along the line, and I know it was contemporaneous with the ruling, shales became ingrained, embedded
Yeah.
in my mind. Now, I don't know if that's an error on our
Well,
part,
me too, I mean,
but
I think we all thought that.
yeah, we clearly thought that. If we made an error, I don't know, but I know that lawsuit was the nexus for it. Just, we changed everything post that.
yeah.
It's easy to change it back.
no, that's why I wanted to have the
But I
discussion.
mean, but there was,
It was clear.
it was
Brian
very
was-
clear, you shouldn't be changing it back. So somewhere along the line, we missed something.
If that's the case,
Well,
the last thing tonight, then
just to interject, we've done a lot of work here without a lot of other advice. And so we just do, watching you guys, because I'm the new kid, watching you guys, everything that you've done has been based upon some feelings from the past that were strongly held, and we need to hold them. Without shall really bothers me.
Well, that's why I wanna go through line by line on
Yeah.
on the land use part, and I think that's what's on the agenda next week. I don't know that we.
Well, I don't know exactly what's on the agenda next week. For that meeting, I know Kevin's coming on, but I thought he was coming in for unified bylaws, actually.
Well, that was part of it, but then they're saying he's also, he's handling section one.
Yeah, he is in section.
Yeah, so we'll do that, and then we'll do, but that's what I think you're right, we have to get that clear as to where the town plan is, or how it exists vis-a-vis pending, if they're even pending bylaws.
Yeah.
You know, but I don't think that's, and I made the same point to the town manager in just discussions, so he's.
Yeah, you spoke to him the other night.
Yeah, so he's aware that, that that's a consideration and our past history with the thing, so, and that the, So-
And John is right, we didn't agree to, somebody else was going to do it, and we were gonna do the whole thing. We said,
Yeah.
yes, give it to us and
Yeah.
we'll work on
Yeah.
it right away.
right, and then we.
And it's all of a sudden, it seems to have a new leader now that, I don't.
That's
you know
what I
I'm
wanna,
saying.
yeah, I mean, we've worked well with Kevin in the past, let's do this again.
I
That's
wasn't
okay.
talking about Kevin.
No, me either.
Yeah, why do people keep getting pissed off?
I'm pissed off.
What's going on that we agitate people so much?
Well,
I mean,
we're in a situation,
he was pissed,
yeah,
the guy upstairs is pissed, everybody's pissed.
He's the guy next door, actually.
yeah, well,
Who's the guy next door?
John. His office is.
You want me
I
to-
don't understand, because we are not agitators.
no, well, let me just call this up, because you guys, I want to read it to you. You should hear it, now that we're in it.
Well, you're talking about his,
That's
John's
what I showed you tonight.
email. Yeah, we saw it.
But
You guys saw it?
did you see
Did
it?
you see it?
It's right underneath, right there.
Yeah,
Yeah,
people make assumptions about what things mean and they.
Sure.
And they react and arguably overreact.
John,
so-
you
What I-
saw the email, didn't
I
you?
saw the,
What I don't understand is who the crimest do we work for?
We work for ourselves.
Yeah,
I got
I don't want direction from the town manager. We got a thing to get done here. If you're gonna, he told me he wasn't gonna be at the meeting tonight. I thought he might. I wanna be left alone to do the work.
yeah.
I don't want these shots to come in on the email, and I'm gonna talk to Phil about that.
Okay.
That's inappropriate, it's not his job, unless it is, and I don't
Well,
know
yeah,
that.
yes, unless it is.
Yeah, and I don't
That's-
know that.
That's what someone ought to tell us, unless it is, because
May I?
maybe we're wrong.
May I just interject a bit? I
Sure.
know we have a lot to beef about. However, it is my husband's birthday and.
Of course.
Here, yeah.
Oh, bless
I would
you,
just like to get a date for the next meeting.
bless your Irish heart. Okay, let's get the meeting date done. Are we meeting next week or not?
Well, when are we meeting with Kevin? What's the date?
I don't know.
There wasn't
We-
one.
we
Said he was
don't-
coming to the next meeting.
No, he's coming to, and I think that's
Comes to a
Wednesday.
June meeting.
Well, it would be the 4th.
No, we'd have to tell him.
Yeah, but
We're gonna
I think he
assume-
was assuming it was the first Wednesday.
Yes, let's assume it is the 4th.
Because
Yeah, okay.
we should be trying to stick to that first Wednesday.
So do you want me to
Yeah.
move?
Then let's do it. I got it.
Bruce, what's his name?
Mary.
Why aren't you meeting on the first Wednesday of the month? I came here for a meeting.
Well,
I know that, I know
I
that.
mean, we try to do that, but
So can we also, in between now and the 4th, everybody get a copy of what Brian presented tonight with changes? Why can't you see red line or?
He wasn't looking at
Oh,
it.
it's wrong computer.
I've got a
Oh,
tablet that
it's all
doesn't,
in
it
the
just didn't
iPad.
pick up, and I just
Okay.
assumed he.
But not red line.
Yeah, I assumed he had made the changes and it was a done deal, and so that, I had to apologize for that.
And he was planning that, if you noticed, early on, he was making the changes right on the spot,
Yeah,
and then we
yeah,
intervened.
yeah.
I thought it was necessary. If you had outvoted me, then he could have made the changes. But
Yeah.
I don't wanna,
No, let's vote on a final plan when the time comes. No, we haven't adjourned.
I'm done. So talk to me about the agenda for the 4th of June, beside Kevin.
Well, what, does
Do we-
anybody want?
Do we
does it
wanna
have
go
to be-
back, if we read the town plan, what he presented tonight? Do you want me to also put that on the agenda as best, if we have time?
Yeah,
Yeah,
Okay, I'm just asking.
yeah. Anything-
I'll have to beam in from another state, but. I
On
think
the
I can.
4th? Yeah, I'm gonna be in the air on the 4th, so I can't even beam it. I haven't tried that. I don't know that maybe you can really do it.
I don't know, Scotty, you have to give it your best shot.
Well, I think Steve is back.
Yes, Steve,
Yeah, as you saw, I did.
And I've
I did
been
give
pushing
him the
pretty hard.
opportunity.
Let's hope it
That was
continues
silly to-
to get these meetings up on YouTube,
Yeah.
so you
because
can catch up.
That one on the 4th, I think, is going to be quite a meeting. I would intend to learn, I would like that on YouTube, because I really believe we're gonna learn something at that.
Okay, the last thing is, what are you gonna, well, let me back up. 2 meetings ago, that rather than just you meeting with the town manager or Bill or whoever else, there was gonna be a group of 2 or 3 that was gonna go with you, so it wasn't just coming on you. What are we gonna do? Do we want you by yourself to try to settle the John issue, or are you gonna do nothing? Do you wanna do nothing?
Nothing. Me do nothing?
No, I'm just saying, how are we gonna, do we need to communicate with the town manager? on his email or any other business? And if we do, should there not be two people? You and Dan's fine with me.
Well, Dan and I have certainly done that together in the past,
No.
and I don't think I've met him by myself without you.
I don't think, I mean, I've run into them, but I've never.
Yeah.
Okay, but if you two wanna do it, just do it. But I would rather have two people there, so one can back the other
Oh.
up to hear what the story is. Okay.
What's, Ron was just sending an email to him saying that the intent was not to, come back to you for something we already settled.
Because there's bigger issues than that.
Yeah.
And one of the issues is, why are these, well, you might not have picked up on it. Are we online?
Yeah.
Yeah, we get it,
We haven't adjourned the meeting.
we need to.
I moved.
I don't think you can
I don't think you can,
talk.
yeah, I think if you're gonna be, if you got something to say, it's on the record.
Open.
Good. But I have nothing to say.
Okay. Need a motion to adjourn. Taken, got it, we're adjourned, get it,
I'm going home to
yeah,
have
enjoy,
dinner with my husband.
please do.
Are we on?
Please do, please do.
All right.